Donald Trump was in a pickle. A big, sour Ukrainian pickle. He had traveled to Kyiv for what he called the best peace talks ever, but things went wrong. Very, very wrong. Now, he was not a guest. He was a prisoner. He sat in a fancy room with gold chairs and velvet ropes, but the door was locked. Ukrainian guards stood outside looking very serious. They had taken his phone, his wallet, and even his special red hat. Trump paced back and forth on a very expensive-looking rug, muttering about how unfair it all was. This was not how his big trip was supposed to go. He was supposed to be the hero, not the guy stuck in a room. Then, the door opened. In walked President Volodymyr Zelensky, looking calm and carrying a small tablet. "Mr. Trump," he said, "we have a small problem." Trump huffed. "You have a problem. I'm the one who's a prisoner. This is a terrible deal. The worst deal, maybe in the history of deals." Zelensky ignored him and swiped on his tablet. "We need money," he explained, "lots of it. So we are offering you to your friends, a ransom. If they do not pay, we have another offer, from China. They are very interested." Trump's eyes went wide. China. They would probably make him eat vegetables. This was a disaster. Trump tried to negotiate. He was the best negotiator after all. "Look, Volodymyr," he said, trying to sound friendly. "We can make a deal, a great deal. I'll give you some beautiful Trump steaks. I'll even build a big, beautiful tower right here in Kyiv. The best tower. It will have my name on it in giant gold letters." Again with his thoughts. He needed a plan. A brilliant, amazing, very Trump-like plan. He searched the room for a way out. The windows were barred. The walls were thick. There was a big TV, but it only played Ukrainian cartoons. This was hopeless. Then, he saw it. On a small table in the corner sat his lunch. A beautiful, perfect hamburger nestled in a soft bun. It was his favorite. But it was more than just a meal. It was an idea, a weapon, a key to his freedom. A greasy, cheesy, all-beef Patriot patty of pure genius. He picked up the hamburger. He looked at it. It looked back at him. The plan was simple. So simple, it was brilliant. Trump would wait for Zelensky to return. When he did, Trump would create a distraction. A big, messy, hamburgery distraction. He held the burger close, protecting it like a precious jewel. He practiced his throwing motion. A fast, powerful pitch. He imagined the burger flying through the air, a beacon of freedom covered in ketchup and mustard. The guards outside the door couldn't see him. They just heard strange grunting noises, and the occasional swoosh sound. They probably thought he was just doing his daily exercises, which he definitely did all the time. This was going to be the greatest escape ever. Finally, the moment came. The lock on the door turned, and President Zelensky walked in again, this time with two very large guards. "Have you thought about our offer?" Zelensky asked, looking tired. Trump didn't answer. He just stared at Zelensky with intense focus, his arm coiled back like a spring. He took a deep breath. This was it. For freedom. For America. For hamburgers everywhere. It was now or never. He had to make this shot count. He couldn't afford to miss. The fate of his entire afternoon and possibly his future dining options depended on this single, glorious throw. With a mighty yell, Trump launched the hamburger. It flew through the air in a perfect arc, spinning gracefully. Ketchup and pickles rained down on the fancy rug. The burger soared past the surprised guards and headed straight for its target. Smack! It hit President Zelensky right in the middle of his green shirt, leaving a giant greasy stain. For a moment there was total silence. Everyone stared at the splotch of special sauce and melted cheese. The hamburger slid down Zelensky's shirt and landed on the floor with a sad, wet plop. The great escape plan had been executed. Now, all Trump had to do was wait for the chaos to begin. Zelensky looked down at his shirt, he looked at the fallen hamburger, then he looked up at Trump, his eyes narrowing into tiny slits. He was not happy. He was the opposite of happy. He was angry. Very, very angry. You threw a hamburger at me?" he said, his voice dangerously quiet. The guard snapped to attention, grabbing Trump by the arms. Trump wiggled. "It was a protest," he yelled. "A very patriotic protest." Zelensky wiped a bit of ketchup off his sleeve. "Forget the ransom," he growled. "You are going to hold a press conference, and you are going to tell the world what a great job we are doing." Trump was dragged into a huge crowded room. There were cameras everywhere and reporters, lots and lots of reporters from all over the world. They all had microphones and big, flashy cameras. A podium stood in the middle of the stage with the Ukrainian flag behind it. This was not the kind of press conference Trump liked. Usually he was in charge. He got to call on people and say you're fake news, but not today. Today he was the main event, and not in a good way. He folded his arms and pouted. "I'm not doing it," he declared. "No way, it's a witch hunt." Zelensky, who had changed into a clean shirt, leaned in close. "You see that man in the back?" he whispered, pointing to a very large, very scary-looking guard holding a very large, very scary-looking water gun. "That's not filled with water. It's filled with borscht. Cold borscht. You will get on that stage and read the speech we wrote for you, or you will be very, very purple and sticky." Trump's eyes widened in horror. Cold borscht! The humiliation! That was even worse than being sold to China. Maybe. He gulped. Okay, maybe he could read just a little bit of his speech. So, Trump walked to the podium. He put on his glasses and looked at the paper in front of him. The words were all wrong. They said things like, Ukraine is a wonderful country, and President Zelensky is a very stable genius. And I was wrong about everything. Trump started to sweat. He tried to read the words but they felt weird in his mouth. He mumbled and stumbled. Ukraine is a place with buildings, he stammered. And President Zelensky, he wears shirts, green ones. They are very green. The reporters looked confused. This was not going well. The crowd started to snicker. Then the snickers turned into giggles. Soon the whole room was filled with laughter. They were laughing at him. Donald J. Trump. He tried to save himself. This is the best press conference Ukraine has ever had. Believe me, he shouted. But that only made them laugh harder. One reporter was laughing so much he dropped his camera. Trump's face turned as red as his favorite hat. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. This was the most embarrassing moment of his life. He had faced scandals and impeachments, but nothing was worse than being laughed at by a room full of Ukrainian journalists. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the building. The doors to the press room burst open. A crowd of people wearing red hats and waving American flags stormed inside. It was his supporters. "We're here to save you, Mr. President," one of them yelled, holding a giant hot dog like a sword. Chaos erupted. Reporters screamed and ran. The guards were overwhelmed. Trump's supporters started chanting USA, USA, and trying to climb onto the stage. It was a full-blown rescue mission, or maybe just a very confused and rowdy tour group that had taken a wrong turn. Zelensky grabbed Trump's arm. "This way," he yelled over the noise. He pulled Trump behind the podium, and pushed open a secret door hidden in the wall. It led to a dark, dusty tunnel. "Where are we going?" Trump puffed, trying to keep up. "To the airport," Zelensky replied, shining a flashlight ahead. "The deal with China is still on." They ran through the dark, cobweb-filled tunnel. Trump could still hear the faint sounds of his supporters chanting his name. "But my people are here," he protested. "They came to rescue me." Zelensky just shook his head and ran faster. They emerged from the tunnel, right next to a waiting airplane. It was a big, gray cargo plane with no windows. Several serious-looking officials in dark suits were waiting. They didn't look happy to see Trump. "But I'm the president," Trump said, trying to stand tall. "A former president," Zelensky corrected him, pushing him toward the ramp. "Have a nice flight." The officials grabbed Trump's arms and started pulling him up the ramp into the dark belly of the plane. Trump dug his heels in. He was not going to China without a fight. This was not part of the plan. "No, you can't do this to me," Trump screamed, his voice echoing across the tarmac. "I demand a Diet Coke. A real one, not the fake stuff. Let me go." He wiggled and squirmed, but the officials were too strong. They dragged him into the plane as the heavy cargo door began to close. The last thing anyone on the ground saw was Trump's flailing arms and his face, frozen in a silent scream of pure panic. The ramp closed with a final metallic thud. The engines roared to life and the plane started moving, taking Donald Trump on a brand new, very unexpected adventure.